Welcome to Bunch Formation, the newest college football podcast. I am Chris Vannini, and I love college football, which is back this week. David, we made it.
Well, you made it, Chris. I'm still trying to survive in a 1,000 square foot house with 2 toddlers and a 100-pound golden retriever. I'm slowly dying inside, only motivated by the light at the end of the tunnel that is week 0, Chris. So please, for the love, Kansas State, Iowa State, I need that Farmageddon in my bloodstream.
We're doing it. We made it. We made it through the offseason. We made it through a change of shows. This is what we are calling the relaunch episode of Bunch Formation. And in today's episode, David and I are going to talk about why we love college football so much, kind of introduce or reintroduce ourselves to you, the listeners, about exactly who we are and why we do this. I partially got this idea from our friends at Split Zone Duo, but it's something I've wanted to do for a while anyway, which is just like pull the curtain back, get a little bit personal, and just kind of talk about why we love college football, and week 0 is the perfect time to do it. Later this week, we will have our week 0 preview episode, as well as our season picks, who's going to win it all, conference champions, Heisman, all of that stuff. But before we got into the season, we wanted to step away from the daily news that we normally talk about and just kind of get personal with you guys. I am a Big Ten grad who now lives in Big 12 country and used to cover the group of 5. David is an SEC grad. Now lives, currently was Big 12, now SEC grad, who is in the process of living in ACC country.
For now.
I enjoy talking about the sport with you, David, because we agree on some big picture things on the sport, but also come at it from very different backgrounds. And the reason I wanted to do this kind of relaunch and re-promotion with week 0 is a reminder for those who don't know, Until Saturday is not coming back, the podcast. The Athletic,
like the Big East, basically.
Pretty much. The Athletic didn't want to continue the show, which was fine. But David and I wanted to keep doing this because we like interacting with the listeners and we just like talking to each other about college football. And this is a way to do it. We just put a camera and a microphone.
Instead of texting you, I'm yelling at you, basically.
Yes, that period between when Until Saturday ended and when we started this show, like Jordan Hudson happened.
We missed Nico.
We missed the Nico stuff.
Drop. There was so much stuff happening that like I would literally. I think how many times did I text you, Chris? Like 10 times in 2 months. Would be a nice time to have a pod, and now we do have one. So the next time that the most famous quarterback in college football falls out of the draft, 4 rounds, we'll have a place to talk about it. So I'm looking forward to it.
This, for those who don't know, this is the 21st episode we've done of the show. A lot of people have been reaching out about Until Saturday with the season here to be like, hey, is the show coming back? It is not. This is the new show. It's separate from The Athletic. We're grateful for the people at Blue Wire who are kind of hosting us and were kind enough to let us continue this show with them. So shout out to Blue Wire Podcast. We're part of that network. And this show's numbers have been growing with every episode. Every last several episodes is the most listened to episode we've done because people are finding it. The season's here. And we love seeing that. We see the numbers. We're really glad more and more people are finding the show. Please let people know that this is a show they should check out if you like it. And if you do like it, please let us know on Bunch Formation, all the social medias, or bunchformationpod@gmail.com. And 5-star reviews. Every review on this podcast so far is a 5-star review. So we are very grateful for that.
Knock on wood somewhere, Chris. Find some wood and knock on it.
And every 5-star review we will read on the show, we have done and will do in the future. But this episode is just about college football and kind of our backgrounds in our history there. Dave, are you ready to do this? I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this.
Let's do it. We can subhead this episode in Jerry Seinfeld voice. What's the deal with the guys on Bunch Formation? That's basically what the show is.
And basically, we wanted to let you know, how did we get here? So, David.
Yes.
Why do you love college football? We'll get into the background and stuff first, or later.
Yes.
But first, just why do you like college football?
I think part of it is so I was born in Minnesota, but I grew up in Arkansas, right? And Arkansas, there's not a lot of states like it. I think Arkansas, Nebraska, West Virginia, Tennessee to some level, although they have the Titans, they added them later. It's just a place where the entire state lives and breathes one team. And so I distinctly remember 1995, Arkansas, South Carolina.
Wait.
Yes.
You're doing the background stuff first. Wait, this is
No,
the
this
next
is but
question.
this is why I love college football. I'm getting
Okay.
there. I'm getting there. I distinctly remember 1995, Arkansas, South Carolina. That was it was a friend's birthday party in our neighborhood, and he took like 6 of us to see Arkansas football. I'd never been to a game before. I think I was like 8, and I remember walking into the stadium through the tunnel for the first time, and I had just never seen anything like it. If you haven't experienced like a big stadium and a big stage, it's pretty hard to describe. Chris, you just went to the Coliseum, sort of a similar vibe, I imagine, of just like there's nothing else like this. And then, as I kind of got into it in like 1997, 1998, when I was getting a little bit older, I'd kind of grown up on NBA and college basketball and then shifted to college football, around that time when I was like 10 or 11. And I think the simplest way to put it is there is nothing like it. I like the NFL. It's a very different product. It's a very different atmosphere. It's a very different environment. I think it has a lot less flavor. It's certainly a little bit more corporate even now. And the identity of the different places. Obviously, I grew up intimately knowing kind of what Arkansas's identity was. And as that kind of shifted when I was younger of like, hey, we just hate everything in the state of Texas, being in the old Southwest Conference. It was Arkansas and a bunch of Texas schools, and then figuring out what being in the SEC kind of meant what was a big part of that. And so I think for me, it was experiencing that and growing up in that atmosphere and seeing there's nothing else like this world. And every Saturday, those precious fall Saturdays, it's just it's hard to put into words, but those who experience it and love it know exactly what I'm talking about, and the endless possibility that comes with, you open your eyes up and there's gold and brown and red on the leaves outside, and there's a chill in the air, and there's a full slate of college football, and anything can happen. And that feeling, you only get 12, 13 of those a year. And man, just as a fan, it was awesome. So that's the simplest way I would say of why I love college football, is because it is so unique, even though it's centered around a sport. All the things around the sport make it really something special and something that I grew to love as a kid. And that, I have my dream job right now. I wanted to cover college football on a national level.
I like college football because there's nothing like it in America. Mm-hmm. There is no greater connection a fan base can have with a team than you get in college football. That is, many of the people in the stadium went to the same classes, walked the same hallway, stayed in the same dorms. Yep. And even as college football moves toward, paying players and online classes and all that stuff, you at least like to think that those players went through the same experience you did when you went to school there. And that's not to say everybody who's a fan of the sport has to have gone to that school. Not at all. But that is ultimately the foundation of the sport, is that these are students playing college football. They're at an organization that's bigger than the team. Like the New York Giants are not more than a football team. They're just a football team. Like Michigan State University, where I went to school, is more than the football team. There's basketball, there's research, there's journalism program, there's a whole huge campus, there's all this type of stuff. It feels like you're playing football for more than just yourself, for everybody, for a community. It's most common with European and domestic soccer and these other places where if you grew up in some small town in England, that was your team. Like, you're born into it and you have to be a fan of that team. Mm-hmm. And that is very similar to college football. And like you said, you have so many places in this country that are connected to college football that are not connected to pro sports. Wyoming is another. Hawaii is another. We have a football team in Hawaii. That is like the coolest thing. Like, that is just so cool. And it's not like, all right, New York's got 50 pro teams, Chicago's got them, LA, every city, almost every city that has a pro team has multiple pro teams. And I grew up in Detroit, which had multiple pro teams. But college, like, there's only one University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. There's only one Ohio State in Columbus. I know there's branch campuses. I'm just saying. So, like, that is what ultimately kind of why I love the sport so much. And even with the changes that happen, that foundational piece. It doesn't feel like you're just signing up to be a fan of a corporation. You're signing up to be part of a community. And I love that. So you kind of went into this, but like let's talk about the beginning of our fandoms.
Mm-hmm.
Um Teams we rooted for, what drew us to the sport. You said you're born in Minnesota but grew up with Arkansas. How did that kind of impact you growing up?
So we moved to Arkansas when I was like 4, right before I started school. And you just can't help it. Again, there's only one show in town, and it is the Razorbacks. It's the Hogs. I remember uh I was sitting down with Sam Pittman a couple years ago. And he had been an assistant in the past there, but I think he grew to gain a new understanding of it very quickly, of how much pride there is in the state and how much Arkansas and the Razorbacks is the only thing that matter in the state, period.
Yeah.
There is no other factor. There's just not. And so, I'm living in Fayetteville, Springdale area, and you just can't not. I mean, it's college football on Saturdays. It's the one team that you kept. I grew up watching like Chris Chakuma, Clint Sterner, all these guys, Anthony Lucas. I was at the Arkansas-Tennessee game in '99, the revenge for the '98 game. From like 2000 to probably I left for college. I went to Mizzou in 2005. I probably went to like every home game. And I think like obviously when you want to do this as a career and you sort of have objectivity, pounded into you, you understand like as I'm leaving for college and I'm kind of figuring out and kind of going on this path, you kind of have to leave those things behind. And I don't know, that wasn't that hard of a concept for me in a lot of ways. But I think back to those times for me, like my Arkansas fandom is very much in those early 2000s, like late 90s. I don't like pretty much since I left for college, I haven't really embraced or engaged with the program in the same way, in part because I knew this is what I wanted to do. And you just really can't operate that way. But those times, I mean, that's, Arkansas basketball won a national championship when I was 7. That's like one of my first core memories as like a sports fan. And the 1998 season, Houston Nutt, this is his first year at Arkansas. They were like 9-0, probably should have beat Tennessee in the infamous like Sternover game. Like this is when you're 10, 11, 9, that you don't have any sense of the world. Like that's the only thing that matters. It's like, oh man, like this was like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. When they lose this game, or this is the best things that are happening when they win this game. And that period in your life, I think there's these teams that are just like crystallized. Like I'm telling you right now, if you quizzed me, I could basically tell you every single guy on that 94 Arkansas team, from obviously Corliss Williamson all the way down to John Inkskov, the original Club Trill back in the day. My guy, the Croatian sensation, Davor Rimac, those guys, like, it's just a very pivotal time as a kid when you figure out what you love. And that period for me was pretty formational and foundational.
Did you have a favorite? Chris? Did you have a favorite player at all in that period?
Fred Talley was pretty up there. He was like a smaller running back. The Remember Some Guys segment is later, but I can remember a lot of guys these days. Fred Talley was up there. He's a diminutive running back who sort of ran. Cedric Cobbs was like a beast. His shoulder like fell off, and he just basically kept on running and kept on going for them in that season. Some complicated feelings about Clint Sterner, but yeah, that's just a really formative time. And I think about those teams, and even though those teams feel a million miles away, those are the teams that made me love college football. I think everybody has that first team that you fall in love with.
So mine's a little bit different. So I grew up in Detroit, like I mentioned, and I grew up playing ice hockey. So like in the mid to late 90s, I was just playing ice hockey, watching the Red Wings, and watching WWF, now WWE, pro wrestling. And my own, like I wasn't watching a lot of sports. I wasn't even watching other NHL games, just the Red Wings, because that's all I liked. And they win the Stanley Cups, and so that's the team you latch on to because it's the team when you're young that wins. I get to middle school, and I make kind of a new set of friends who watch other sports, and they don't watch WWF as much. So it was right in that period, like 2000, 2001. I pull away from pro wrestling and I start watching ESPN every day, which I hadn't to this point. I would just start watching ESPN to like figure out who these teams are, what these leagues are, and all this kind of stuff. And the Detroit Lions have been garbage my entire life, my dad's entire life. And so I was never like, why would I care about the NFL and the Lions? They're terrible. The Tigers were terrible. The Red Wings were good. I continued to like the Red Wings. But then you had Michigan and Michigan State. And I have this faint memory in 1997 standing outside my childhood home for some reason and looking through the window and seeing Brian Greasy in Michigan celebrating the Rose Bowl in 97, 98 in the national championship. But I don't have any other like memories of that team or that year. It wasn't until late 2002 and then into 2003 when I was like, all right, Michigan football is my thing because they're good and they're nearby. I'm like 40 minutes away from Ann Arbor. My grandpa went there, and I'm thinking now I'm starting to think college. Like I'd love to go to Michigan. So that 2003 Michigan team, and Braylon Edwards was the player that I latched onto. He was just incredible to watch those handful of years at Michigan. I think he won the Biletnikoff, just explosive wide receiver. I get the college football video game at that time as well, and I'm throwing to him all the time. And so I'm starting to learn all these players who's on the team a lot. They win the Big Ten in 2003, beat Ohio State. They win the Big Ten again in 2004, lose to Ohio State. And so that's when my college football thing kind of started going. And so I'm a Michigan fan there through middle school and through high school. I wore a Michigan hat like every single day for years in high school. And so then it comes to going to college. And I want to go to Michigan. I've got good grades, and going to Michigan was like the driving force of like that period of my life.
You and Connor Stallions both, yeah.
Me and Connor Stallions both. I should have gone to the Navy. And I apply and I get deferred. I'm like, okay, let's wait a little bit longer. Just like later in the process. I'm still in high school at this point. But I apply to other schools. I visit Central Michigan. I go up to CMU. They give you free tickets.
So are you sure this is not Connor Stallions? This is
that's a good point. I'm not on the sideline, but it's Central Michigan, Akron, and Dan Lefevre's the quarterback. So I go to a game there. I visited a couple of schools. I got into Penn State, got into Indiana, got into Loyola Chicago, got a huge scholarship, pretty much full ride if I want to go to Central. And I got into Michigan State. And I went up to visit Michigan State. I was like, oh, this place is not what I thought it was. Because when you grow up a Michigan fan, you think Michigan State are just these like garbage people who are just like they're not, proper and the so highest achievers like the University of Michigan. And I go to Michigan State and I'm like, wow, this campus is beautiful. This feels like college. Like, because when you go to Ann Arbor, it doesn't exactly, because there's like multiple campuses. They're kind of split up, and it's like in the town of Ann Arbor, which itself is a pretty good sized town. It's like, well, kind of Michigan State was interesting. Like I may consider that more than I thought. And I visited a second time at Michigan State, and I was like, man, I kind of really like it here. And we go to, my dad and I go to a hockey store, and they've got all the CCHA hockey jerseys, Michigan State, Ferris State, all of them. And I look at the Michigan State jersey, and I'm like, well, I kind of like this thing. And my dad goes, if you get into Michigan, do you actually want to go there? And I was like, I don't know, actually, because they don't have a journalism program either, which is what I'm wanting to go into.
The Daily has produced a lot of good journalists, but yeah.
Debatable. Actually, not many good ones at all. And so we get home from the hockey store, and I get a letter from Michigan, and they're like, we can defer you to second semester, I think it was. And I was like, nah, I'm going to Michigan State.
Yeah, that would suck anyway. That would be such a weird fall if like all your friends from high school are going somewhere and you're just like sitting at home like, I'll see y'all in the spring. Like that would be, that'd be terrible.
And I'm like, nah, I'm going to Michigan State. I'm like really excited about it. So then I start wearing Michigan State gear for like the second half of my senior year of high school, and everybody at school is like, Chris, what are you doing? Like you're a fake fan. You were a Michigan fan. You just switched to Michigan State, all these kinds of things. And so there were some Michigan fans who made fun of me there. So that was a weird period at the end of my senior year of high school, but I ended up going to Michigan State. Now you didn't go to Arkansas.
No. So basically I figured out at an embarrassing age that the NBA was probably not in my future. So I was like, I got to figure out what I want to do. And I liked writing and I liked sports. And I was like, I should try sports writing. So I started working for my city paper like sophomore year of high school, covering, wait for it, Chris, junior high football.
Oh yeah.
There's not a lot of papers, dare I say zero papers, covering junior high football, but I did that back in the day and I freaking loved it. It was awesome. You would do like capsules on like the 8 junior highs, and then I'd write like a feature on the biggest game of that week and then go to the biggest game.
By the way, they call it junior high for you?
Yeah.
Like for us, that was middle school.
No, middle school. So elementary is K through 6, middle school 7 through 8. There's not real sports. And then junior high, K through 5 is elementary. Middle school is 6, 7. Junior high is 8, 9th. And then 10 through 12th is high school. This is our.
That is bizarre. Sorry. That is weird. We're K
anyway,
to 5.
No, there's like separate junior highs.
6 to 8 is middle, and then 9 to 12 is high school. So you don't even have a freshman year of high school.
I guess technically not. I mean, that 9th grade year is when your grades start counting. So anyway, I loved it. And I knew pretty early on, like I wanted to go to journalism school. So I'm just like, well, where's the best schools? Chris, you'll never guess where everybody told me I should go.
They tell you to go to Michigan State University?
No, they told me to go to the University of Missouri. And so, yeah, I was working for the paper, working for my high school paper, which, by the way, this is a good nugget these days that I tell people every now and then when we cross paths. But I covered Gus Malzahn's high school teams for my high school paper, which is really like, the Mitch Mustaine era. Like, my high school had like 6 black people in it. And like basically all of us lived in the same subdivision. So like Damian Williams lived like 4 doors down from me. Just grew up in this weird kind of era, figured out I knew I wanted to do this. So I had that advantage going into college. Missouri, I mean, listen, there's a long list of journalism schools that would claim to be the best. Missouri's on that list. I kind of looked at Northwestern and Syracuse. It's too cold. Couldn't do it. I'm a warm weather guy. So Mizzou it was, even that was a little bit too cold. And then, the rest is sort of history at that point. But mine was solely a journalism-based decision. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere that had like big time sports because I wanted to go to the games and still experience that and have that be a part of my college experience. And I certainly have like, ties to Missouri and like, went there and like loved my time there. But I don't think I ever really cared like on a deep level. Like I'll pay attention to what the team was doing and like, I'll have a group text with college friends and some of them care more than others. We all sort of still pay attention. But there's only like, I would say 2 or 3 like real Mizzou fans in my like, college friend group, I guess. So
is noted Missouri alum Michael Porter Jr. in that group chat?
He's not, but I will say he's a frequent topic of conversation. I will say there's been a lot of MPJ chatter the last couple years in that group chat. I will say.
So at the time, like Missouri, Arkansas, was that a thing at all? Because now there
is no cross. This is why I make fun of the quote unquote battle line trophy, because those two fan bases, even though like 5 hours apart, could not care less about one another. There are no people from Northwest Arkansas. It's a large area. I mean, there's 250,000 people there. And I think at my entire freshman class, there was like 3 people at Mizzou that were from that area. And I only knew one of them. Like they don't really recruit the same areas of students or athletes. They don't ever play each other. Like there was some Norm Stewart, Nolan Richardson beef in like the early 90s, but like there's just they don't care about each other at all. So
because they weren't in the same conference either.
They were not. Again, I went to Missouri from 05 to 09. So this is Big 12 era. This is prime Brad Smith, Chase Daniel, Gary Pinkel, Mizzou. So I was there for like probably the proudest, era of football since the 60s, basically.
Same.
It was fun. I mean, it was fun. Quinn Snyder got fired my like freshman year, and then I guess did Mike Anderson come right after that? I think that's right. So
do you have any memories of Arkansas in the Southwest Conference?
No, because we didn't move to Arkansas until 1992, so they were already in the SEC. So that 95 game is my first real, like I hadn't ever like watched Arkansas football before. Again, it should be noted, no one else in my family cares about sports like at all. Like I tell people this. So my dad went to Iowa State for his undergrad and he went to Iowa for his medical school. And his engagement in fandom is he will see in the paper the next day if the Cyclones won, and he'll text me be like, "Nice win for nice win for the boys." I'm like, "Yeah, man, that was like 24 hours ago." That is the extent of my dad's fandom. I mean, he was at all my stuff, but he would like bring a book and stuff. Like, there's nobody in my family likes sports at all.
My dad, like my dad was a big sports guy. He still is, still yells at the television. He got me into sports, got me into hockey, got me into WWF, pro wrestling. And so when I went to Michigan State instead of Michigan, all of my family members like decided they hated Michigan, even though we'd grown up liking it. Like my dad and I went to Michigan Ball State. I want to say 04, 05. No, it might have been 06, the undefeated year. And Brady Hoke, the coach of Ball State, nearly upset Michigan in that game. A very, very close game.
They should have tried to hire him. I bet that would be great.
They do that later. I went to a year or two before Michigan, Iowa, and I sat in the front row when Drew Tate was playing there. I went to quite a few Michigan hockey games, went to a lot of Michigan basketball games. I remember when Michigan played Nebraska in that Alamo Bowl and Michigan nearly like multilateraled it for the win. I watched that game from Michigan's basketball arena because they had played like Coppin State, I think, and something like that. So like I grew up going to I hadn't been to Michigan State until I went there for the spring game of my senior year of high school, which was Mark D'Antonio's first season. And so I get to Michigan State and the program is down, but I go there because one, it was a really cool place. It seemed like had a hockey team that mattered to me, and basketball is really good. I'm like, there's a lot of opportunities to write about sports here. I didn't know until I got there that the State News is actually one of the best college newspapers in the country. And so I didn't get onto the paper till my sophomore year. My wife gets in as a freshman because she was like a high school all-state writer. She almost went to Missouri, by the way. She should have. She drove. You probably would have been classmates with my wife.
Probably, yeah.
You've never actually met in real life.
Yes, I have. I met her. I met her a couple times.
Oh, you did? You met her at Westminster Dog Show?
I did, yes. That's another story for another show, yeah.
There's not much of a show. We competed in Westminster one time, and Ubben happened to be there.
Well, yeah. Anyway, yes, go ahead.
But Michigan State, like, so you go to Missouri, and you just didn't care about Missouri at all, right? Like,
no, I went to the games. You care to some degree, but like, you know, like I remember my freshman year, like Vince Young came in, like tore them apart, and just like, all right, and then I just went about the rest of my day. Like, let's go eat at Plaza 900, and then like let's go like play NBA Jam or something. So like, it's just like, okay. So
in my freshman year, have student tickets, go to the Michigan game. And Michigan has this big fourth quarter comeback, and the Michigan fans in the stadium unfurl a banner that says "Still Arrogant." That was 6 straight wins for Michigan. After the game was when Mike Hart drops the little brother comment. I remember that being like one of the most distraught I've ever been after a sports game. What was that? I was like, I can't believe that happened again. I went to Michigan State instead of Michigan. I used to be on that side and all this kind of stuff. And then Mark D'Antonio turns it around and he beats Michigan 4 years in a row. And I'm covering most of those. Kirk Cousins leads the program to many highs. Nicest guy in the world for 100% real life. I remember one time I was covering basketball team, and Kirk Cousins, who at this point, like, we know is going to the NFL, but he's like interning with the communications department. And so he's like helping the media out, get papers at the basketball game and stuff like that. And he asks us, me and my colleague at the student paper, like, where do you guys fit on the plane to get to the games? We're like, what are you talking about? He thought that the media flies with the team to the games. And we're like, no, we get there on our own. He's like, wow, I did not know that. Yeah. Good for you. That's really tough.
You want to talk about college newspapers. Well, Chris, we won't have college newspaper travel story hour, but let me just say that when Missouri, the year I was covering them in 2008, when they played at Baylor, it's a calamitous story. I think I've told you the full story, but I drove from Columbia to St. Louis, flew to Dallas, and then drove to Austin, and then went the same route back on Sunday morning to cover that game. Listen, college newspaper travel is no joke because there's no budget. You might get to go, and especially when you have to, like, you know, these college newspaper budgets now, like when you have these cross country, I don't know how they pull it off because it is a nightmare. At the bowl game, the Zoo went to the Alamo Bowl the year that I covered them, and we were staying not in the media hotel, in a Days Inn on the side of the highway in San Antonio, like 6 people to a room.
Oh yeah, I housed some Wisconsin sports student writers who came and stayed with me when Wisconsin came up to play, and that was the game that Michigan State beat Wisconsin on a Hail Mary.
I remember
Kirk Cousins, or a Hail Mary that was ruled short, and they had to review it. And Keith Nichol got the ball over the line. I'm right on the field for that when they announced
Keith Nichol, former Oklahoma Sooner.
Yes, when they announced it's good. And so, like, I covered the basketball team too for 2 years. There was a Final Four run in there, and like, as a student, like, I rooted for them. Like, I wanted them to win because it was better for us as the writers if they kept advancing in the NCAA tournament. It's more fun covering a good team, you know. And so, like, when I'd cover the team, I'm not like cheering on the press box and doing all the stuff. You know how to like check that, but
be professional,
but you're still a student and you still see players in your class and stuff like that, and you want to have the college experience. So I went through college, rooting for the team. I was not a big professional capital J journalist like.
Well, Missouri's not
the Missouri kids.
Like they give you like, listen, it's like a literally like a, I don't know how to call it. It's not a dressing down, but it's like a, hey, like, so we had the sports. So I won't get into the whole Missouri method. It's a lot, but the sports editor there, you're not working for students, you're working for professors, and he basically banned all sports. Like, you can't wear an insignia from any team or anything
really
like, in the newsroom, period. Yes.
So the day that Tom Izzo announces he's not taking the Cleveland Cavaliers job and is staying at Michigan State, this is 2011. I have to rush to the place where the press conference is going to be because it was a quick turnaround. I didn't realize till after the fact I was wearing an Izzone shirt in the press conference.
That's a tough look. But
like all of us at that paper, like we understood the line between like being a fan and having it not impact your work. Like that was not a difficult, and we had a couple professional advisors and stuff like that. And like, you know, we would play the Michigan Daily in the football game.
Yeah.
Played against Nicole Auerbach. And, you know, we wore shirts that said the State News and the Michigan Daily, but they were green and white and in maize and blue and whatever. And you'd sing the fight song if you won the game or whatever. So I always found that a little bit too much. Just, I think you can trust people to kind of wiggle that. But so that was college. You're a couple years older than me, so you were a little bit ahead of me. But
yeah, so basically I got an internship with the Oklahoman, did a bunch of stuff that summer, went and covered Oklahoma football for the Oklahoman, just fresh out of college. And that was, I learned a lot in that job. And then I was there 9 months, 6 months, I forget. And then got a call from ESPN. If anyone remembers the old conference blogs, I'm sure people do.
When Adam Rittenberg once linked to something I wrote at the State News, I got
people
so
love the
many
lunch
texts
links,
from
man. People still hit me about, hey, thanks for putting me in the lunch links in like 2011. It's like,
yes,
sure, man. I just needed something for the day. Like, I like, all right. It was just like, oh, that was interesting. I tried to get like the most like, things. And anyway, so worked at ESPN for 3.5 years doing the Big 12 blog. I don't recommend that job. Those blogs don't exist anymore. That was a tough
You worked
gig.
at ESPN, dude. We'll get to what my career path was. I don't want to hear your complaining.
Here's the thing. I recognize that it did a lot for me in my career. It was a tough gig. Anybody who did those blogs, you can talk to Rittenberg, you can talk to our girl Andrea Adelson, that whole crew, CeeLo, all those guys that I worked with. It's a tough gig. You basically during the off season, you're putting up like 5 and 10 things a day. During the season, it's closer to 10 to 15. And then especially in the leagues that we're covering, just like one, it's just me just doing the Big 12, one person. It's a whole thing. And then there's like travel mixed into that. It is a whole thing. It's a tough gig. Great job. Very glad I had it. But as far as the actual work, I don't recommend it. Anyway, after that, I worked for Fox for a couple of years doing columns and TV, which was really interesting. I still very vividly remember going on live television for the first time with very little prep, and having a producer in my ear. And then I learned about a week earlier that Craig James was going to be on our show. That was an interesting experience. That's a good piece of lore there.
Is that post Texas Tech?
Oh yeah, it was way post Texas Tech.
Yeah,
this was like 6 years after everything. Let me just say that.
But by the way, Craig James
bringing Craig James onto the show was a very controversial decision. He eventually, because he did the show like 2 weeks, but then you couldn't really call it getting fired, but we were a broadcast partner with Texas Tech. Fox Sports Southwest.
Okay.
So it was myself, the GOAT, Rick Renner, Gary Reasons was on that show, Matt Mosley was on that show.
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of people. And so Tony Banks, you probably remember Tony Banks,
Michigan State quarterback.
Yes, exactly. He was on the show with us. Tony's great. And then Craig James was on like a part of it. He was on there for 2 weeks because we were a broadcast partner with Texas Tech, who was like, what the heck? We'd rather not have Craig James talking about the Big 12. And he hadn't signed a contract. So they were like, hey, please leave. Anyway.
Craig James, by the way, lives pretty close to me. And I actually gave his number to our colleague, Justin Williams, who's writing about College Game Day.
Interesting.
Interesting guy. Interesting guy.
I forgot Craig James was on College Game Day back in the day. So anyway, did that for a couple years, and then the Fox did the infamous pivot to video where they fired all their writers.
That's going to play into my career too here.
Yeah, I still did a little bit of TV for them, but then just freelance, did a bunch of stuff everywhere. I was mostly at Sports on Earth with our current managing editor, Matt Brown. That was a great out. We did a lot of really good stuff at Sports on Earth, but like many media ventures in the 2010s, I had no idea how it made money. It didn't really make money. It didn't make financial sense, but the product itself was great. Joe Posnanski launched it. Will Leach was there. There was a bunch of really talented people. The content at Sports on Earth was fantastic. And so then at that point, The Athletic starts launching, had had some conversations with Stu and them, and then freelance the first year in 2017, which was like 8 years ago, which is hard to believe, Chris, that was going down. And then they launched the team networks in 2018. And my wife and I elected to jump on board with that. Well, I should say I'd worked at Dave Campbell's Texas Football also for one off.
You were still in Dallas at the time.
I was still in Dallas at the time. My wife was finishing up seminary there. So I took a job with Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Great job. Loved that job. But The Athletic was just really, really attractive. A lot of things drew me to The Athletic. Elected to move across the country, cover Tennessee.
Did that across the country.
I mean, it's a good chunk of the country, Chris.
You almost in the same time zone.
Almost, but 13 hours is a solid drive. So anyway, lived in Tennessee. We just left, obviously. So I covered Tennessee for 3 years, then moved to National in 2021. Yeah. And we have just now moved to Charlotte for some work reasons, all that stuff. And so that's where we are now, Chris. This is going to be my 5th year being national, I think. And I don't know, I lose track of the time, but I'm loving it, doing the dream job. It's great. So walk us through your path. I'm mostly familiar with it, but I don't know that I have all of the...
I mean, I didn't have the pain of working for the Oklahoman at ESPN just out of college like you apparently did.
I didn't have... You could have had that pain if you'd gone to Missouri. This all could have been fixed.
Well, yeah, because you guys all set it up for each other, and it's all this little. You kind of have this whole little network thing.
Don't talk about the Mizzou Mafia. Don't talk about the Mizzou Mafia that loudly, Chris.
Some of us pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I didn't have a full-time writing job for a year out of college. I was covering the Detroit Tigers for an MLB.com internship that just went past graduation. I just followed them to the end of the season because I was living with my parents. I don't think they do that program anymore either. By the way,
it's a good program. MLB. If there's a writer that you like, they probably were an intern at MLB.com at some point. The amount of talent
our friend and former colleague Matt Fortuna was in the same class I was with that MLB.com. But I was staying at home. Get to the next fall and I'm doing some blogging for M Live and the Detroit Free Press, kind of, but not much of anything. And I think at this point I start running the Michigan State SB Nation blog, The Only Colors, just so I have another outlet to write about Michigan State about. But I need to start kind of working and making some money somewhere. So I started working at a sporting goods store, Dunham's Sports. This is 9 months after graduation or so, and I start doing that and trying to write on the side. And then SB Nation had a news desk back in the day, and they had
I remember
city,
this, the mothership. Yeah.
they had city sites like Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, all that kind of stuff. And because I had been running the Only Colors, I was able to get in on that. And I wrote about the Bobby Petrino motorcycle accident for them. I
Talk
just
about
did like
Arkansas
the news
lore.
update. Yeah, talk about some Arkansas lore. And so I'm like doing all these like 4 or 5 part-time jobs all at once. And then the old sportsjournalist.com. I would constantly check that job board. And there was a posting for something called coachingsearch.com, which I was faintly aware of. It had just kind of started, very similar to Football Scoop, which I knew at the time. And because of the news desk work I'd been doing at SB Nation, the guy, Pete Roussel, was running Coaching Search on his own. And he wanted somebody else to kind of do a lot of the day-to-day work. Basically just kind of write 5 to 8 things a day of just news updates and stuff like that. A couple hundred people applied because, again, it was that time. Somehow I get this job, and right before I get married too.
Real quick, so, Chris, can I give a quick sportsjournalist.com side story?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar, you probably are not. If you're listening to this, you may or may not be familiar with sports journalism. At one time, very happening, like the center of discussion for a lot of sports journalism topics.
Yes.
Well, when I got hired from ESPN, Chris, I stumbled upon the thread where people were talking about my hiring. Unimpressed to say the least. That was tough to read when you're like 22. I was not really prepared.
I mean, did they know you went to Missouri though?
They did, and they were not pleased. Anyway, go ahead.
So, but Pete Roussel, he's a former coach. Him and his brother had run Football Scoop, and they had a falling out. And Pete makes his own site. And when Pete tells me early on, like, "Hey, Bruce Feldman's writing a story about this," I was like, "Ooh, interesting." I didn't know the whole story till Bruce wrote about it for I think it was CBS back in the day, about kind of the falling out between them. I was like, "Wow, that was interesting." So I worked with him for 3 years for Pete, doing coachingsearch.com. I'm working every day for years, making not a lot of money, but it's a writing job. And that's all I'm looking for. And it's just barely enough. No vacation, not taking vacation, not benefits, independent contractor, self-employment tax, all that kind of stuff. But I'm applying for jobs at SB Nation, at CBS, at everywhere, all the time, every year, and not getting anything back. It is very frustrating. And then one year, Coaching Search partnered up with 24/7 Sports and Shannon Terry, who's now
I remember this.
3. And so we kind of merged into them for a year. And Pete fought for me to come with him instead of, they kind of just wanted Pete, but Pete brought me along too. And I was grateful for that again. And so after about a year of that, Pete becomes an agent, coaching agent. And so he's pulling Coaching Search out. And instead of getting rid of the site, he wants just me to run it on my own. And he'll keep paying me. He's not feeding me any stuff about his guys or telling me anything. Like, he wanted that. Credit to him, like, he really wanted that site to be fully independent, not slanted toward anyone or anybody. And that is, I think, why the site continued to have respect. Like, I would get messages from Stuart Mandel or Bruce Feldman or Dan Wolken about all these people who found the site useful because we were constantly updating. Nowadays, everybody's got a coaching tracker or a coaching ticker or whatever like that. Back in the day, it was just Coaching Search and Football Scoop were the only ones doing that. And so they all liked the site. And it would have been so easy for Pete to be like, "Let's pump up my guys," or this or that. He didn't do any of that. He kept me in the dark on all of this stuff. And that kept my credibility with everybody, thankfully. And so, but I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I'm thinking like, man, I'm not getting any bites on these other jobs. What can I do? Hey, I'm meeting a lot of coaches, my Rolodex is getting bigger. Like, this will help me for my next job is what I kept telling myself. Like, I'm getting a network here that will help me eventually when that next job comes. Then spring 2017 happens. Well, also, by the way, I'm still living in Detroit at this time. I've applied for the Michigan State job every single time it comes open from all of these places. I'm not even getting an interview. So it's like, so my wife gets a job down in Dallas to do PR for an animal shelter with the city. I was like, sure, let's go. I have no writing opportunities here in Michigan. Let's go to Texas and try that out. So we get down to Texas late 2016. Then early 2017, and you mentioned the Fox pivot to video. It wasn't just Fox that pivoted to video.
Everyone did.
Everybody did. And ESPN laid off a bunch of its writers. Fox did. Yahoo did. All, especially college sports, for people who don't remember. People who do remember, college sports was hit really bad at that time. Stu and Bruce both lost their writing jobs with Fox. And so at this point, I'm thinking like, well, what job is there for me now? Like, these guys are all doing the job I wanted to do. That job no longer appears to exist. And I reach out to Stu because we had talked a couple of times. And I was like, hey, man, just kind of want to know if you have any like career advice, kind of at this time. And he says, I'm going on vacation, but I'll reach out when I come back. I go, okay. Couple weeks later, he reaches out and goes, hey, I know you were interested in some career advice, but I might have a job for you. The Athletic is starting a college football site and they want me to run it. And I'd like you to come be a part of this team. And I'm like, holy crap. Like all these years of applying for jobs and not getting anything. And he offers me this job. And at the exact same time, actually, I did hear back from CBS for one of their blogger jobs at the time. But the guy who was running it at the time, Adam Silverstein, who's now my podcast partner on my pro wrestling podcast, Getting Over, he was like, you should take that Athletic job. That's a better job. I think it's going to be a good thing. And so Stu brings me on to cover the Group of Five. He was like, I think there's an audience here that is really untapped that people aren't covering. I was like, I completely agree, because every time I wrote about the Group of Five and Coaching Search, it would do big numbers. And to this day, I still think that's the case. And so I come on that first team. It's me, Stu, Nicole Auerbach, Max Olson, Jason Kersey, Chantel Jennings, Matt Fortuna, Dan Uthman. I think that was everybody.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah.
Apologies if you forgot that, but there
were six of us, and 6 of us plus Stu. We each had 5 to a Power 5 conference, and then me on the Group of 5. And then we eventually added you as a freelancer. So that's 8 years, and I'm still here 8 years later. Loving it. I got very lucky in my career. And that's the one thing I say to young writers all the time, or people who ask about like career advice. It's like, one, you got to kind of do something that's different. And that's what Coaching Search was. That's how all these, I only have a job because Stu found the work I was doing here because it was different and he liked it. And then you got to get lucky. Like we all know you've been laid off. Everybody in this business has been laid off at some point. You got to just be right place at right time. And I was, and I'm forever grateful to Stu and the Athletic for that. So that's my path to where I am here now. But like along the way, has fandom, like, how do you approach fandom in terms of like how you do work?
I think it's mostly a non-factor. I think you spend enough time around teams. So like, I already wasn't that big of a Mizzou fan necessarily, but like the first year I covered the team, you just spend a lot of time around them. You're going to practice. You get to know kind of the personalities in their team, and you're kind of like, this is kind of like everywhere else. Like you can figure that out pretty early. That like there's different gaps in competence for sure. But generally, the way the programs operate and how things work is like pretty similar in a lot of places. And so every place is special, but also like nowhere is kind of special. I don't mean that as a pejorative, but like having seen
I can tell you a lot of places would disagree with that. Every college sport is special in its own way.
Yeah. So I think like I'm just talking about the inner workings of how the program actually operates, covering the beat and seeing like, all this stuff. So I think that's the simplest way of like, I don't know. It just wasn't.
Here's a question. Why did you want to cover college football and not basketball or anything else?
Well, honestly, part of it was just lifestyle. Like the college football, like most college football writers generally have like normal lives. Like you can have kids, you can be married. Like I don't think the divorce rate is like super high. Like covering Major League Baseball or basketball, we're on the road for like crazy amounts of time. Like, I don't know how people like do that. And so that was part of it, is like, I think this mostly works as a way to like live life and not just have your job be your whole life. It's kind of an empty way to live. So that was somewhat of a factor. I just loved the atmosphere, and I grew up around it and knew like, hey, like being in a stadium for a big game on a fall Saturday, like there's nothing really like that. And I think as you get more in tune with journalism and like the storytelling process and finding cool stories and telling those stories, and I think you gain more appreciation for that side of the work. But it's like, I love that there's great human stories in this super interesting world.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sport is great, but the game's only sustain this or that. Like the big game is cool still. I still love that. But my favorite thing is like when I have a great story on the hook and I'm like chasing it down. That's why I do the job. I just love chasing stories in this world that I understand and care about and love, frankly.
I had not, like, when I went to Michigan State, when I did my interview for the student paper, they were like, "What's your dream job?" I said, "Cover the Detroit Red Wings for the Free Press." And after my first year of I'd been to some college football games, but I hadn't regularly gone to games. And that freshman year, when I went to every home game and went to some road games, I was like, man, college football is it. Like that was when college football became my number one sport. Supplanting hockey was early on in college for me, really. And at that point, and I covered the team my sophomore year, I was like, college football is what I want to do. Like again, the lines were terrible. The NFL is this or that. All these other sports are cool. And I applied to cover all these. I applied to cover everything. If anybody wanted to hire me, nobody did. But to be able to stick with college football, like I don't do this job and like think, all right, I'm doing this but I want to get up to an NFL beat.
No.
Like I don't. I want to stay here with college football.
I don't begrudge the young writers that come through college football and do, but that's just never how I saw it, basically.
Because there's every year is totally different. And this was the case before transfers and all this stuff too. Like you have such turnover with players and coaches. There's always fresh stories. It's not like you have a team that has a player who's been there for 10 years and you have a bunch of veterans who there's no other stories to tell about these guys. There's always something going on. And there's so much of college football, you can always find stuff. I love doing the group of 5 beat because I would go to Memphis, I'd go to Navy. I just cover all these things and just learn about all these new places. I just wrote a story last week about New Mexico. I'd never written about them before. And it was just really fun to kind of just dig into all of that. And so that's why I've stayed with college football throughout all of this, is because there's nothing like it. And even when, people in New York City or the East Coast maybe don't quite get it, or people will say college football has to be more like the NFL and try to change it to that. Like, no, that's not what college football is, unlike anything else. That is the point. That is why we love it. It is a big, beautiful mess. And just because you can't, put that in a capsule and sell it to somebody at a bar in Queens doesn't mean it's not the second most popular sport in America, just because it's so regional. It's regional in all these places like Arkansas that don't have much else. And I've done this job for 8 years. There has not been a second where I could not think of something to write about or talk about. There
Easily.
is always something going on in this crazy super.
100%.
It's not like every year, all right, it's draft time, so let's talk about the top prospects. Oh, it's free agency. Here's what the cap is, and you just go through that normal cycle. Every year, every offseason for college football, there's something stupid that happens that suddenly derails everything. We got now ideas of a 2018 college football playoff, which we'll talk about later in the week, that are just like, what are you talking about? And so that is like, I don't want to cover anything else because I love this sport.
I'm about the same. Ultimately, the pacing just like works and I like it. And that 3-month sprint is really exhausting. But I think you probably experienced the same way. It's like that first month, like it's like sprinting out of the blocks. You're like, man, like this is great. Like anything can happen. This team might be a fraud. This team is super interesting. And then like October comes, you get a little bit tired. You're like, okay, like Halloween is like that's like the tough part of the year for like just trying to do the weekly grind of the job. And then once you get in November, where like it's crunch time, then you're like, oh, these are like some high stakes ball games.
Yeah.
And that's just generally how it goes. And then once you get to the championship weekend, there's still some season left, but it's not the same grind. The weekly
There's a
grind
lot of
that it
season
is.
left now at this point.
Yeah, I know, but it's not the same as it is during the season. And so that's just doable. Like I've been covering this year, this fall, it's kind of crazy. This fall will be my 16th, 17th season covering college football, and I'm not sick of it. So that's a pretty good sign.
No.
And you know, I think you've experienced this as well. Like just in general, working at the Athletics been the best job I've ever had. We have a lot of freedom to do really weird, fun stories, and I'm looking forward to doing a bunch of those this fall. Talking about them on the pod. And the sport has changed so fast. The money has added a really interesting wrinkle in team building and in locker room dynamics and lots of stuff that we still haven't really fleshed out yet because people still don't want to talk about it, but they're getting more and more comfortable. I press people on this. You know, last fall, I'm calling up all the collective people and basically not berating them, but I was badgering them for like, how much you spend on your roster? Like, really? And some were more talkative than others, but like, that stuff is interesting, and we're going to keep pounding away at that. The money part of it, I think, is still like the most fertile ground in this sport because it's driving everything. It controls everything, and we're still not entirely sure how everything works. And it's very much in the dark, unlike at the pro sport level where everything's pretty public because there's a cap. So I'm excited for the future of the sport and what that means for covering it.
That stuff is interesting in the offseason, but like for all the changes and all the negativity that keeps coming around college football the last couple of years, like nothing compares to that Saturday kickoff. And we still have that feeling. And that is ultimately the feeling that nobody wants to go away. That's what we have to keep. That's why we decided to cover college football as our jobs, is what drew it to us as a sport. When I was a kid, the Lions were terrible and you're just playing in a domed stadium. To go to Michigan Stadium or to Spartan Stadium and to just experience this whole other world is nothing else like that in America. And that is why we love college football. That is why we think it's our favorite sport. It's the number 2 sport in America by pretty much every metric. You know how many people go to college football games on Saturdays and the number of stadiums
it's a lot
that fit more than 100,000 people? It's really crazy. If you explain that to people anywhere else in the world, you mean these are like students at university and you put 100,000 people? Yeah, because it's not just about the name on the back for that period of time. It's about the community. It's about the experience. It's about the traditions. It's about the songs. It's about the memories. It's about more than 150 years of history for the sport. College football is so much older than the NFL. And I love that. I love that the Rose Bowl has been along for so long. Like NFL history is like not that great, especially pre-Super Bowl, which is not that long ago. Every NFL team that comes out with a throwback jersey, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But every college football team that comes up with a throwback jersey, it's beautiful. That's because that's what college football really is all about. Anything else you wanted to touch on here as we kind of wrap this episode up?
No, it's almost time to remember some guys, but I think in general, you know, if there's any mailbag questions or anybody have any questions for us, I think it's a good jumping off point. I think I've alluded to some of these things in the past, but I think it's a good idea to like, you know, the whole point of podcasts is like, hey, a connection with the people that you're listening to. And that's kind of, you know, what our deal is at this point. And when you're reporting and writing, you know, you're not going to be part of the story, but I think in podcasting, you have to be. And so this was fun.
One of the,
life
by the
will
way,
take you some weird places.
One of the reasons we also wanted to restart a new show is because when David and I were in Atlanta for the championship game this year, we got stopped by several people multiple times. Who said, hey, until Saturday, love the show. We were both like, whoa, that's cool. Nobody ever stops us, rarely gets stopped to say like, nice story, you know? And
not very often.
That's why we wanted to keep this whole thing going. We've been having a lot of great times doing bunch formation. We hope everybody will be along for the ride for the season. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get out, we have to do that segment called Remember Some Guys.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
This is the segment where we each name an old college football player and we go, hey, remember that guy? And we did a lot of that actually on this episode, but normally it's just something we save for the end of the show. And I have a follow-up from the last episode. I did Illinois quarterback Kirk Kittner, who was a quarterback when I started to get into college football. I got a message from my brother-in-law, Sean, who actually just recently moved to Champaign. And he mentioned to me that he lives just a few minutes away from a custard shop that Kirk Kittner partly owns. That is apparently really good. I looked this up. Jarling's Custard Cup, I believe, is the place. It looked like a bunch of former Illinois coaches and players like banded together to buy it when it was going out of business or something like that. So
interesting.
Again, a college community, man. Like you're not going to
legitimately.
You're not going to see that many other places. But the player I'm going with here for my Remember Some Guys is John Navarre. He was the quarterback at Michigan. As I got into college football, he was a quarterback on that 2003 team. Threw it to Braylon Edwards a lot. One of the guys you pretended you were when you were a kid, throwing the ball and doing all this stuff. To me, John Navarre was like an amazing quarterback. And I think he became like a 6th round pick and didn't do much of anything. But like you said, when you're younger and you're at that world, like that's the biggest thing in the world to you, like to be the quarterback at Michigan. So shout out John Navarre.
Well, fittingly, Chris, my Remember Some Guy today is the great Juice Williams. And for one, just an extremely fun player.
Yeah, by the way, Juice Williams, Illinois quarterback.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot of Illinois love on this show. Illinois coming up in the world. Luke Altmaier, Britt Bielema. Hey, listen, they're getting after it. But the very first game I covered as I guess technically professional. I was working for the college paper. But the very first game I covered as a credentialed member of the media was a Juice Williams game. Missouri, Illinois in 2008. Banger of a game, quite frankly. Pretty back and forth. It was a good game. Missouri won that game. It was a top 20 matchup in, I forget what they were calling it at the time, the stupid dome in St. Louis that nobody plays in.
Edward Jones Dome.
I don't know what it was called at the time. Was
it the bragging rights game?
I don't know if they technically
that's
call
just
it that on football. It's a big deal. Oh, no, it's the Arch Rivalry, which is actually a great name.
That is a good name.
Yeah, it is very good. It's right there with Arch Madness, the Missouri Valley tournament name that they play in St. Louis. But no, the bragging rights game is like exclusively basketball. It's a pretty big deal, but the problem with that game is they always play it in St. Louis, well, most of the time, and they usually play it when the students are gone, so it kind of loses a little bit of juice. It's mostly the Missouri like diehards. I love it. Anyway, but that game was great. Rashard Mendenhall was in that game. I believe Regis Ben was playing for that team as well. A banger of a game. Sort of forecasted that Mizzou was going to be doing some stuff that year. So
I know Juice Williams and the game you're covering, so it's like sentimental to you, but it's Juice Williams. We have to talk about the year prior when he went to Ohio Stadium and knocked off number 1 Ohio State.
Yes.
Juice
Williams is an extremely fun player.
in the craziest college football season of our lifetimes, 2007. Like that was the year that like solidified it for everybody. That Illinois team went to the Rose Bowl before coming to play Missouri the next year. So Juice Williams, man, he was fun. Big dude who could run. Ohio State could not wrap him up. That was a period where if you were a quarterback who could run at all, nobody in the Big Ten could stop you. Like they had no idea what they're doing. That's the thing. Like, again, you and me coming from different backgrounds. I'm coming from 3 yards and a cloud of dust Big Ten football, where the first dual threat quarterback, like ended Lloyd Carr's career essentially when he was there. So you come at it from a little bit of a different background. So David will often hate on Big Ten offenses. And I just say, you got to understand the context of like what we grew up with and kind of what is considered a good offense. Joe Tiller comes and decides to throw the football. Nobody knows what to do. And
novel concept.
Suddenly Drew Brees and Purdue are going to a Rose Bowl. So,
by the way, Juice Williams in that game, 451 yards, 5 touchdowns in a loss. Shout out to Nick Foles. Yeah.
That's a Missouri game.
Yeah, that was the arch rivalry in 2008. The first game
Yeah.
I covered as a credentialed member of college football media. Yeah.
John Navarre, Juice Williams, two great Big Ten quarterbacks. We remember you. Listeners, if you want to submit anybody to remember, send that to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. We got a reply. There was a Spotify comment from a listener about the whole Joe Webb Minnesota Vikings thing that you explained.
Oh, I got to go read this. I haven't seen
on
it.
the last episode. So, yeah, a lot of people learning about that as well. So, guys, college football is here. Week 0 is here. I cannot wait to go through the season with David Ubben, with you guys, the listeners, with you guys, the viewers, if you're watching on YouTube as well. Please like and subscribe and do all that stuff.
Yep.
Trying to grow the show. Again, we're doing this on our own. We're not being paid by The Athletic to do this. So anything you can do helps in terms of just liking, subscribing, 5-star reviews, ratings. We'll read them on the show. Please let us know what you think. We got a message a couple weeks ago that the levels weren't great and some of us were talking too loud. I've tried to fix that. So if there's anything you guys feel about the show, good or bad, please let us know either on social media or on bunchformationpod@gmail.com. We will be back later in the week to talk about week 0, to talk about our predictions for the college football season 2025. I cannot wait. He cannot wait. He is David Ubben. I'm Chris Vannini. Thank you for watching, for listening. We will see you all season and later in the week.
And keep the turnover chain in storage for a little bit. I don't have room for it in this house.